If anybody listening wants to know, the most important thing about is recency. In other words, that tops pretty much anything.
Hey, my name is Felix Tia, and I'm the host of Shopify Masters, a weekly podcast powered by Shopify, the easiest way to sell online, in person, anywhere in between. Each week, we invite entrepreneurs like you to share what they've learned growing successful e-commerce businesses. In this episode, you'll learn how to scale ad spend from $1,000 to $30,000 per month, what is browse abandonment, and why is it important to set up email flows for it, and why recency is the most valuable attribute to know about your customer. Before we get into our show, I want to share a strategy some businesses are using to help manage cash flow during COVID-19. They are selling gift cards. Gift cards give customers a way to support you right now. We've seen some creative ways to market them, like selling gift cards at a discount, giving special offers for customers who redeem them in the future, and adding free gift cards to high-value carts as a bonus. As part of Shopify's response to COVID-19, gift cards are now available on all Shopify plans, so you can start selling them right away. Today I'm joined by Angela and Steve from Veldskoen Shoes. Veldskoen Shoes sells ethically and sustainably made shoes from South Africa. It started in 2018 and based out of San Clemente, California, and is a seven-figure brand. Welcome, guys.
Welcome.
Hi,
Thanks
how's
for
it going?
having us.
It's great to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. So I gave you guys a one-sentence description of your product and your business, but please tell us more about basically the product, the shoe itself.
Well, so Veldskoen is a shoe that's been around for centuries. So if you are from South Africa or Africa and have ever heard of the term Veldskoen, it's a shoe, a type of shoe there. And since Steve is South African, I'll let him explain the shoe because he has a lot of history growing up wearing them as a kid.
Yes, I grew up, as Ange said, in South Africa, and loved growing up there. And we had this pair of shoes that, everybody had a pair, and they were essentially farmers' shoes. They go as far back as 400 or 500 years. One of the tribes in South Africa called the Khoisan tribe, which a lot of people will know as the Bushmen, and they essentially were the ones that first started making these shoes, sort of in a really rudimentary way. So essentially, we're looking into how far that goes back, and it's obviously really difficult to get there. But as you can imagine, it goes back, over 1,000 years as far as the tribe is concerned, because they're the oldest tribe in South Africa. And then, it's just kind of evolved, and it's basically a heritage shoe in South Africa. It's, we hold it very dear to our hearts as far as just who we are as a culture and a nation. And so, when I was in South Africa, end of 2018, I was really kind of looking for something. I'd learned so much off of, we'd been on Shopify for almost 8 years, I'd say, maybe 6 years. And I'd learned so much, and I really felt I wanted to do something else as well. And I saw somebody wearing a pair of these shoes, and I was like, that'd be so awesome to bring these to America, because, they're such an amazing shoe. And so here we are.
Yeah, so I think you guys hinted at this, which is that this is now your first Shopify success story, essentially, and you have built this second brand out of necessity. So tell us more about this. Like, why not just double down on what was already working? What made you decide to branch out and diversify?
Yeah, so Slide is a seasonal business. So obviously Slide, if you don't know what it is, it's a handboarding company for body surfing. So our biggest time of the year is the summer months. So in those winter months, we have a lot of spare time, and we always just use those months to prepare for the summer. And, Slide is still running and still successful, but we really wanted to grow, were growing our family and wanted to support us more. And we knew how to do it, because with Slide, it's, we're creating an entirely new market where we have the infrastructure of knowing the Shopify in and out, since Steve has built and designed and does all the programming and everything for Shopify there. And we knew how to market. We wanted to add something.
Yeah,
so
we wanted
a no-brainer.
Yeah, it was kind of like a bigger market that I felt like, I'd learned so much, and with such a small market, it was very difficult to kind of get everything I knew and make it work as well as I knew I could.
Yeah. I think we were like, if we can sell millions of dollars of these tiny little hand boards, then if we go into a bigger market that's not so niche, then we know we can do really well. And we were able to prove that in our first year of business.
Yeah, you certainly played the game on hard mode at first by trying to create a whole new market. Let's talk about the revelation that about choosing a new product that you wanted to bring to market. So, what made you decide to? I guess what about the shoes that made you realize that this is an actual business opportunity to import or to bring this kind of cultural element from South Africa to the U.S.? How did you know that basically it would be well received by Americans or people in the U.S.?
Well, the most important thing for me was the story.
Yeah.
I had a, it was very dear to my heart, and obviously I'd grown up with the product myself, and that was the biggest thing for me, and it's the biggest thing, even looking forward to, if we have to start any other kind of brands, would be that it has to start with a story, and it has to be, I want to say authentic.
Yeah.
It's an authentic story, something that you're sitting there at 12 o'clock working on either your email marketing or your website. You have to have a passion for whatever you're doing, and you have to believe in the story that you're telling. And for me, this was a no-brainer because it's such a dear to my heart and so close. And I also truly believe in the product is just so amazing. It's such a comfortable shoe, and in all our reviews, that's what you hear. And I knew that would be something that was, would come out in the shoe. Not to mention also it's really important for me as a South African, as an expat, to want to give back to my, to my home country. And Veldskoen is, it's in a, like you said, it's ethically produced and it's sustainable. It's a country with almost 30% unemployment, which is, I don't even know if a lot of people can get their head around just what kind of unemployment our factory hires 150 people. Most of those people have been with that factory for 20 odd years. So it's really good to be able to give back to the country that sort of gave me life, I guess.
Yeah, and we were searching for a while for a new product or something that we wanted to do. Steve and I knew we wanted to add something to a new brand. And when Steve showed me Veldskoen,
you immediately.
I was like, immediate. And, he was always showing me things, how about this, how about that? And I saw Veldskoen and I'm like, yes. And I could tell immediately that I thought it was something that we could do and that I loved as well.
And the give back for me specifically was something that was a real draw to that, because I could really create jobs and do it in a really meaningful manner.
Yeah, I can certainly see how that can be motivational during the more trying times of starting a business. So when you mentioned that you were on a lookout for a new product, a new brand to start, and it almost sounded like it was like a gut feel for both of you to pursue this one. Now, I think as any entrepreneur we're always a little skeptical. Well, we at least wanted to know quantitatively, is this the right product to go with before we sink time, money into it. How were you able to, I guess, validate whether it was going to be a success or not without, obviously dropping everything in and just diving right into this new business?
So we brought over a few hundred pairs of shoes from South Africa, and we set up a booth at the Abbot Kinney Festival that September of 2018. And Steve and I
we didn't have enough people.
Yeah, we didn't have enough people, just him and I selling the shoes. We constantly had people there at our booth, and it was something that we've never had to do before, is, hey, trying shoes. Okay, this size, and like working out the sizing and everything. It was a crazy and hectic day, but the result of it, we knew it was going to work here, because we do have partners in South Africa, and they do a great job there, but everyone knows what a Veldskoen is in South Africa. So it was interesting to see, bringing something here to the U.S., how it would be perceived, and it was perceived that day.
I think as an entrepreneur, you need to have a healthy dose of self-belief and stubbornness at the same time, because regardless of us doing that test, I kind of whenever I have a belief in something, like, if I don't have a belief in something, let me start there. It's very difficult for me to get motivated on something. But when I do, I'm like a dog with a bone. I won't let it go. So that was also, a great deal of it. The testing is obviously very important if you don't want to waste your time. But I just knew in my heart of hearts that this was going to be something that would work. And regardless of that, beyond that, that didn't really matter to me, because it was more about, like I said, creating these jobs in South Africa and hopefully making a great brand out of something that was so good and helping so many people over there. So that was kind of forefront. The market testing is obviously really important, and I always recommend it, but you really, at a certain point, you've just got to kind of go for it, and
Yeah, let's talk about that. I think the aspect of belief is super important, because sometimes you need that belief to keep yourself going, even just get started in the first place. Is that something that you can cultivate, like this belief, or is it just a matter of having the right match between you and the type of person you are and the product or the story? Like, how do you try to do things to basically improve or increase your belief, or is it something that you found that you just have to have the right match?
That's a difficult question, because I don't really know. I just have it personally. Like, if I believe in something, I wouldn't know how somebody else works in their mind. For me, it's just something that, like I said, I'm kind of like a dog with a bone, and yeah, it's a difficult question to ask.
Yeah, I think, with Steve, because he's the designer and he's the one that's
that clear vision, it just kind of comes to you. And I think something that doesn't get forced all of a sudden just starts to kind of flow out of you, as far as on a design side of things, it just kind of starts to come out.
Why I think the authenticity of the story and what you're doing is so important when you're specifically for e-commerce, because you have this great platform to tell your story, and this is what people are looking for. And I just think that as long as you have an authentic story that you also believe in, that's going to guide you.
Yeah, I can imagine, though, definitely set up your booth and being able to sell your shoes too certainly will improve that belief. What else did you learn, though, about selling your product in person that you're able to take with you when you started selling online?
That we didn't want to sell in person,
basically. No, I hated selling shoes in person. I don't want to put a shoe on another person's foot myself ever. like poor shoe salesman. You got no. It was such a long and grueling day that was like, okay, online for sure. I don't want to be selling shoes in person. But the big thing was sizing was a difficult thing, figuring out when you have shoes. We went from handboards, which we'd never had exchanges or returns. They bought it, they kept it, they loved it. with shoes, you have this whole different thing because, everyone's foot is so different. So that was a big
and they're very
learning
specific.
experience.
It's a bit like a bed, you're very specific about what you lie on because you're in it, half your life. And shoes are the opposite. You're in them half your life, the other direction. Yeah. And so, if somebody doesn't like it, they immediately send them back.
Yeah.
And it's a very big hurdle to get over as far as shoes are concerned because, obviously we offer free returns and exchanges, and it's, you get a lot.
Yeah. You have to factor that into your pricing and your operations, which was a big learning experience, but we had figured it out pretty quickly.
Is there any way to, obviously the free returns, I think it makes a lot of sense for any objections that someone might have with buying a shoe online when they're not sure yet about the sizing. Anything else that you can do up front before they even make a purchase to improve or reduce the number of returns due to sizing?
Yeah.
Well, there's a few things you can do. Obviously make, technology plays a big role in that. As far as I know Nike has a special fit thing that they spent millions on. Obviously, we don't have the money for that, and but you can, through our email flows, which is obviously post-purchase, just making sure that people understand that when they put the shoe on, that the leather is actually going to, it's whole grain leather, basically, meaning it isn't made up of pieces of separate pieces of material or leather. It's a piece of leather that will essentially last a lifetime. And so, just to there is a bit of a break-in, 2 to 3 days of wear. Just making sure that they're aware of that.
Well, and I think what's really helped is that our reviews have grown. Now we use what's our review system called? Judge.me. And they, having that up there, because people look at the reviews and everyone comments on the sizing, what they normally wear. And then
we basically let our customers do a lot of the heavy lifting for us.
And then we suggest if they should size up or down. And then actually my aunt does customer service for us, so she's constantly online just helping people as a fit specialist. Making sure they get everything right. But
we have a full family involved in the business. Angie's dad does all our CPA work or not CPA, but our accounting work. And then her aunt, who is Aunt Joyce on the actual website, is actually Angie's aunt. And then obviously me, myself, and Michelle, who has been with us for
like 8 years.
8 years. Yeah. 8 years now. So
very cool. Yeah, definitely epitome of a family-run business.
Yes.
So I think it's clear that the story behind the brand, the story behind the product, the story behind the culture elements of it are super important to you guys. How do you make sure that this comes across or is clear to your customers as well? How do you make sure that you are able to communicate this story to them?
With a great deal of difficulty at first, Ashley, to be honest. And I give a lot of credit to my friend Joel, who is up in Los Angeles. He's actually part of our marketing team. And, he's worked for Nike and a bunch of, so he gave us a really, I would go up there for a day and we would just sit and talk about it. And obviously, I had the passion for it and I'd created Slide and I knew, so it was, I was 2 steps ahead, but, he definitely helped me take it to another level on, just explaining, but not over explaining stuff, which I think, just reams of, you just really like your copywriting. I think I've taken a step up with it. If I don't mind saying so myself.
Kind of like less is more.
Less is
being
more.
A little more simpler, but
still getting the point across, because people don't read anymore. They, the imagery is key. So, that was, it took a lot of effort. I'm not going to lie, and a lot of time. But it was fun because it was something I was working on that I truly believed in, which is honestly, like, I can't recommend that more. If you're just doing something for the sake of doing something, I would rethink what you're doing. I would definitely go after something that you truly believe in. And it's funny when those ideas come, because I didn't kind of go into exactly how I'd seen Veldskoen, but I was sitting with my cousins at a restaurant in a little town in South Africa, and I saw a girl walk past, and it was just like a light went off. I was just like, that's it. That's what I'm doing right there. And it was, it all just kind of came together in my head, like the whole idea, like I could even visualize the website. So it'd taken a long time to get to that point. But because I had been constantly, like me and Ange had constantly been talking about wanting to start something new, and we were constantly in that sort of frame of mind, you find that it actually comes to you in the strangest ideas. You could be walking down the street and all of a sudden, this idea comes to you.
Yeah. And I think, to go back to your question of like how we tell the stories, like Shopify obviously gives such an amazing platform to make just beautifully designed websites, where as Steve, as a designer, is able to go in there and just be able to tell our story through the imagery that he's been able to get. And then also, I think the other major piece of telling our story is what we do through the follow-up emails, even just post-purchase. So even if they haven't gone through and read all about us and the history, they're getting that as, the shoes are on the way to them. And then, even after they get them, or when they go back, if they need to exchange it or decide they want to return it, they see the history and everything. And maybe they're like, oh, wait, maybe instead of returning, I just want to exchange or try something else. So we're constantly able to share that story. And then obviously through social media, we have that story as well.
But the emails are definitely a huge part, and I give a shout out to Klaviyo for that, because they're amazing. They just their whole platform is so easy to use, and that, like, I don't get paid for that. I just really believe in like what they're doing over there. But just being able to, I really get a kick out of communicating with our customers through email. I enjoy setting the whole thing up, and it's fun.
Yeah, definitely want to talk about the importance of the follow-up in a second. I think when I asked that question about how do you communicate your brand story, how do you make sure the messaging is right, a lot of times we do think about how is this communicated through written text, but I think you bring up a good point about how the world is evolving, where imagery is so much more important. So tell us about how you are able to, how do you capture the imagery that you want? How do you capture a story that you want through images? Are you working with a photographer? Like, how are you guys actually piecing this together?
Well, as Ange said, we have partners in South Africa, and I'll give a big shout out to Nick, who he organizes all of the imagery, and we work together on. I'll just be like, I'll tell him what more color, or like just do fun, and he, like, they get some great stuff. So we have some very authentic pieces that come out of, it comes from
straight from the source.
Straight from the source. Yeah. So, they've been producing some fantastic stuff, and it's funny. I'll go through old albums, or like, I catalog. I'm like meticulous with cataloging our imagery. I put it all onto not Photoshop, Lightroom, and then I pick from there every time, and I'll go through old pictures, and I'm like, that's going to be that would be a great banner image. And we change out regularly, and I'm always going through. I'll just sit on my phone when Andrew's watching Suits, and I'll go through the imagery, and I'm just like, that needs to be changed. That needs to be changed. It's kind. You've really got to obsess over it, and just constantly
Steve
go
does
through.
obsess over
Yeah,
it.
I kind of
This is
obsess over like probably a little bit too much. I'm probably going to give myself an early grave, but
So I
hopefully not.
think it's important. People. I think regarding like keeping your site updated and always testing the imagery out is important. What's your thought process? Like, how do you determine whether the site looks good or not? Or basically, how do you determine whether you should be changing the design, changing the imagery out on your store's website?
Look, I'm a big fan of A/B testing. I love the concept. Unfortunately, I don't have time to do that on a very kind of stringent manner. So a lot of it is quite frankly gut feeling, and I've been doing it for 8 years, and I go with my gut, and we've taken our conversion rate from what was a 0.7 to well over 2 or 3. So it seems to be working. I'm not saying it's the best way. If you have the ability to do A/B testing and make that a central part of how you do your web design, but I'm just not analytical like that. I'm more feeling. If I like, I know when I'm a designer by degree and trade, and I've been doing it a while, and so it's just something like I know something that fits, and I know the story I'm trying to tell, and it tends to kind of evolve onto the back end, which is a good conversion rate.
then it's also important to obviously change it out as the seasons are going and what's going on in the world and what's trending in fashion. Like, so you do have to be on top of it all the time because, something new is happening every day. And you need to usually you need to reflect that in your business.
Yeah.
So these partners that you mentioned that are helping with the imagery, are they like photographers? Like, how do you get these like action shots, lifestyle shots of the product?
So our partners in South Africa, they own Veldskoen in South Africa. And then, so, we've mentioned like Veldskoen is a type of shoe. So a couple of years ago, they realized that no one in South Africa, after all these centuries, ever actually trademarked Veldskoen. And so they were like, oh, wow, like that's crazy. So they trademarked the name there. And so when Steve was in South Africa and we're like, oh, let's bring Veldskoen here.
The first question I asked them was like, why like the TM? And they were like, yeah, nobody had done it.
Yeah. And there's so many, you can buy so many different types of Veldskoens, and there's a ton of different manufacturers there in South Africa. And so they were brilliant to do that. So when we wanted to bring it to the US, we went to them to work with them to bring it in, and then we partnered them with them. And so the content that we're able to get and work with them is that, obviously they're doing it there in South Africa. And that's how we're able to get it.
Yeah. So they actually, they own the brand in South Africa. And then, so that's how it works.
Got it. Okay, so I want to jump now to the follow-up emails that you mentioned, which I think is important because I think the focus for a lot of people, especially when they're starting out, is to how do I get that sale, but not so much how to improve the customer experience after the basically post-purchase. So tell us more about that. Like, what are you sending them after they've made a purchase?
You should see Steve's follow email flows. They're like the same.
Yeah. I'll narrow it down. Obviously, anybody who's familiar with emails will understand flows, but a flow is essentially kind of what it sounds like. It's just a flow of emails, and you can set up separate flows that target different segments of customers. And this is where I think Klaviyo is by far and above the best, is their segmentation. In other words, you can segment somebody who's just from the things they do, the amount of time on the site. There's so much data that I wouldn't go through it all. But obviously our biggest return on investment from my time is just building out the two most important is a welcome email for anybody. Anytime you sign up to our email list, our newsletter, you get a welcome email of I think it's about 8 or 9 emails. And those are all set up as a flow. So they go out, obviously every 2 days or whatever. And then our abandoned cart has been fantastic. And obviously if you haven't set up an abandoned cart in your email, it's free money. And another one that I just set up just recently was browse abandonment, which I hadn't really thought about doing too much, but I just set it up recently, and we've already had some fantastic returns on that. So I'm glad I did. But yeah, there's all sorts of stuff you can set up flows for people who are VIPs. Obviously, you want to treat those people differently. Anybody who's
specific to California or whatever state it is, if there's snow there and you want to send something out.
Yeah,
if there's you can do any different.
Yeah, there's really so much that you can do just based off of. And if anybody listening wants to know, the most important thing about is recency. In other words, that tops pretty much anything. And when I say recency, it's how recently somebody has done something on your site. So if you can keep that in mind as far as when you're setting up segmentation, in other words, obviously somebody who added to cart, 1 day ago is going to be far more lucrative than, to target them than somebody that was, added to cart 2 months ago. They're not going to care. So, obviously that, those you really want to keep in mind.
Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying the show, please leave us a review on iTunes to let us know what you think or what you'd like to hear more of. Now, let's get back to the interview. We talked a bit about slide handboards and your success there and how you were able to hit the ground running really with starting a new brand. So tell us more about that. Like, how was it to transition from selling something in a completely different industry to another one? Like, how did you guys make that transition?
Honestly, it was the best transition. Not that slide. It was easy.
I'd learned so much from everything I'm talking about with Klaviyo, I learned doing slide. It was because it came out of necessity. Like if you weren't spot on with slide, you lost the sale because it was so difficult. And so coming in from having sort of 6 or 7 years of experience of setting up all the basic things that it literally took me a couple of days to set everything up, to perfect everything like that. That's obviously a different thing, but to set everything up really didn't take that much time, from the Google business to the the Facebook to all that stuff. I knew the things because I'd been poring over the data. I'd been poring over this. I'd been doing that. I like everything to get the wheels moving on slide. And we continue to and still do a fantastic job with slide. And it especially during the summer, we just crank. But like I was saying, like Andrew was saying, during the winter, it obviously slows down.
And we already also, all of our operations are already set. So it's really a plug and play for us. So we already know what works with, our shipping and our warehouse, our marketing, what apps we use with the Shopify, what connects,
and now it's just basically refining.
Yes. And adjusting to, a completely different, going from the surf market to basically a fashion brand.
Yeah. And essentially like what I said from the beginning with Veldskoen was that it was actually an inventory company, because if you don't get your inventory right, and, we've learned a couple of lessons along the way that especially with the amount with slide, the inventory is not that important, but it's always important, but with shoes, it's exceptionally important because if you purchase a bunch of sizes that don't sell, you've got a bunch of sizes in stock that are just going to sit there forever. So it was really important. So that was something that we learned.
One good lesson that we learned from the beginning was regarding inventory is, we were selling well with the black and black and gray. And then, one photo we were using for marketing on the blue was just crushing it. And then we ran out of our blue shoes all of a sudden. So it was like, okay, what's out there for, our ads and stuff? We need to make sure, what we're putting out for ads is what we need to sell. So don't put something out if we don't have a lot in that color. So
and it was very interesting. It was an eye opener for me personally too, because I actually saw we had control over what we were able to sell, because which is fantastic, and all this is props go out to Joel at the marketing, because he's just like, give me a great shot and I'll sell that type of shoe. So that was something that we learned really quickly, was like, don't put out an awesome image of blue shoes if
we don't have them in stock.
If we don't have them in stock, thinking people are just going to choose another color. They're just not. So basically you're wasting ad spend. So it was very interesting lesson to learn.
Got it. Yeah. Speaking of paid traffic, you had mentioned to us offline that you started with only $1,000 of marketing spend and now grown it significantly over time. Tell us about that. How much have you grown your ad spend monthly now?
So we're up to about $30,000 in monthly ad spend, and we're growing that every month. So that's been the great thing about this business, is that we did just start with $1,000, and over the past year and a half, just went from that 1,000 of ad spend a month to 2 to 5, to 6 to 7, and just rolling in the profits of every month into the next.
Yeah, can you talk about how your strategy changes as you scale up at $1,000 of ad spend? What are you focusing your attention on? What is the objective at that stage?
We focus a lot on our cost per acquisition. So we just need to make sure that we're not losing money per sale of shoes. So you have to remember that our shoes, they are expensive. They do cost $135 to $179. But you have returns, exchanges,
free shipping,
and then obviously acquisition costs and overhead. So all of that comes into play. So we wouldn't be able to have rolled over $1,000 into now $30,000 without getting investment, without making sure our acquisition cost was at the right price. So that was why we went very slowly with starting at just $1,000, was there was a lot of testing going on and tweaking, literally every day. Our team is
hourly,
tweaking,
not every day.
Is tweaking that, where our ads are going and what's being seen.
Can you speak more to that? I think others out there that have $1,000, maybe even $1,000 a month, would love to be able to get to a point where they're scaling up to $30,000 a month, because obviously that means profitably too. So I think that's a goal for a lot of people. What is the approach to test early on to make sure that you are not losing money essentially, and that you're not going to end the month with basically in the red?
Yeah, so you need to first figure out all your costs before you know what that cost per acquisition can be. So that was the first thing we did. How much can we spend where we're not losing money? Like, what's our goal, so that we will have an excess amount of money to roll over into the next month. So we took our average shipping cost, with the returns included, and all those product costs that are associated with that, and said, okay, we need to have, our goal to start is to have our average cost. I think we started, it was around $40, which is really high, but we're still able to roll that over. And then now this month we're down to 15, so it's being able to have that testing and know where you can be, what your max is before you can up your spend. Don't up your spend if you can't afford it. So we went from 40, and then, the next month we were down to 35 and then 30. And as we started getting lower in our average acquisition cost, that's when we started raising the spend. So the lower the cost got, then we started raising our spend.
Something I want to add to that as a caveat is it helps to have a partnership with somebody that you trust that knows what they're doing with Facebook. If you want to, there's no way that there's every way that you could do it yourself, but the way that we've done it is we partnered with a very good friend of mine who also happened to be a data genius and was able to find the people at the right cost of acquisition. I'm not saying that you can't do this yourself, because you can, but it also takes an immense amount of time when you consider the fact that, it's a bit like kind of gambling in that, you can throw $1,000 down on Facebook and end up with nothing. Mm-hmm. So you need to be very careful with it. If you're going to do it, you need to understand the way that the algorithm works. You need to understand the back end of Facebook advertising. You need to understand data. And if you don't, if you have no clue what that is, and you haven't got the next mousetrap, and the next best mousetrap, then I would definitely consider joining up with somebody that can do that. There's Facebook advertising has evolved to a point now where it's you can definitely do it yourself, but to get those really, it takes a lot of time and effort. That's as much as I can add to that.
Did you guys partner with somebody from the beginning, or was it the early stages done in-house?
Well, I'd been friends with Joel probably 10 years. He's probably like one of my best buddies. He is my best buddy in LA at the moment. And we had gone for a surf, and I was telling him about this shoe because obviously, again, this is where, that passion comes in, is I was able to sell him almost immediately. And I wasn't even trying to sell him, to be honest with you. I was just telling him about these shoes, and I was wearing a pair. And he was just like, I could see his kind of brain ticking over. And he was like, yeah, let's set up a meeting. And, we went in, and everybody in his office was super stoked on the shoes, on the product, and on the story. And so that was kind of where it started.
But Steve did the Facebook ads for us for the first 4 months. And he did well, but would have he been able to get it down to our $15 while he's still running, all the Klaviyo and Shopify updates? I mean, there's no way. Exactly. It's a lot of work to make sure, to be a 6-figure business and run everything perfecly by yourself like that. You need the help, and you need experts. You do. You need experts.
I think you need
someone you trust.
I think to start off with, Felix, you needed really. You obviously cannot afford somebody like Joel unless you're willing to give away points and they can believe in your product. If they don't, then you're going to have to buy an agent. You have to go to an agency, and honestly, the people that, nobody's going to do as good a job as you. So I would definitely, to start off with, to prove your marketability or your market, what you're going to be selling, I would definitely consider doing it yourself. You just need to learn as much as you can about it and be in Facebook backend probably 3 or 4 times a day, just checking and making sure and tweaking and understanding your audiences and all that kind of stuff. And there's a really good perpetual traffic. I don't know if you've heard of it. Is a really good podcast to start with. Molly, somebody or other, but they're they do a fantastic podcast. There's other podcasts out there as well. I don't know if anybody knows of any other better ones, but just to learn the basics of Facebook, it's a great place to start.
Got it. Okay, so now that you have worked with experts in this space, have you been able to determine like what has been the winning combination of who you should be targeting and what kind of ads to put in front of them?
It changes weekly because it's like they're trying. If it goes over a certain threshold that we've set, then we cut it immediately and start on something new. And this is where I say, Joel is a data genius as far as just going through the reams of data of people that he would expect to see. We segment. Our audiences are based off of locations too, are really huge for us. And New York is massive. LA, Oregon, I think, and then the desert states are quite big for us. So, it's basically testing, and that's Facebook. That's what it's all about.
One thing that
testing
was really working before the pandemic is we were following events. So, and geotagging from events, and that worked really well.
Yeah, we geotagged a specific because it's a South African shoe, and we're all like, rugby is a religion to us. And so the Los Angeles Rugby Sevens, which is a tournament that happened just before the virus hit, and we geofenced around that location, and we had our best day ever.
We did. I think almost $15,000 in that one day with very little ad spend.
Interesting. You're like geo-targeting where you believe your ideal customers are congregating, like, in real life.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, you're sending out messages that would be relevant. So when they see it come up on their feed, they see a rugby ball and maybe a pair of Veldskoen.
Right.
No, maybe like a guy, I don't know, whatever. Like,
and then our Instagram stories that day are all relevant to that event. And, so everything between the marketing and advertising piece, it connects to our social media person, and they're connected on what event they're targeting and then what content is going up.
Yeah, and so that when somebody comes from if they start to like kind of go around our Instagram feed, it's not like they're coming from a completely different place, right? They're like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the same brand. Like, they're also into their rugby and stuff. So, and we were really excited. For Coachella coming up, and then South by Southwest, which of course got canceled. So, that put a spanner in the works.
Got it. So it sounds like you guys obviously have a process down and like a team working around growing this business. And you mentioned to us that one of the keys to your success is getting this process up and setting up a team of advisors. Tell us more about that. Like, how did you set up a team of advisors for your business?
I highly recommend being around people that are smarter than you. And so our advisor, my main advisor, Sam, we met him 7 years ago. I was in a springboard program that Steve and I went through, and he just helped us with our financial model. That was his job, free, within the springboard. And him and I just got along really well. And I think he just kept letting me come to him after even the springboard ended.
He loves doing it.
And, because he's passionate about it. He was retired. Now he's in his 70s, and he just, he works for free. I mean, for the love of it. But so I still meet with him once a month to go over all of our P&Ls and balance sheet and just make sure I'm not missing anything. Neither Steve and I went to business school. So he has been by far the most important piece of, our financial success, and not having a bunch of debt and be able to grow our business organically because I have someone who's, been through.
The minute that COVID-19 hit, and we knew it was obviously going to be more than just, a couple of shops closed down, and, we saw the bigger picture coming like a freight train at us. The first person we called was
Sam.
Yeah. And he was just like, he just said to us, cash is king. And he's like, just cut whatever you don't need to get you. All you need to do is get through this. Yeah. And like, that's a piece of advice for anybody out there listening, is just
advisors.
The advisors, I'm just saying about the COVID-19, which is just to get through this however you can.
Yeah. So him, and then also things like Goldman Sachs has a program called 10,000 Small Businesses. That was something I did this year. And they set you up with advisors as well. You basically, for free, get to go get similar to like a mini MBA that is run through Babson College. And they pay for your school for a semester. That was something that was definitely another important piece to just helping us learn and grow the business, and then having those connections with people. And then third advisor, my dad. He's run, we brought him in as doing our books, but he's had his own multi-million-dollar business. When he was younger, he was able to retire early. And it's nice to have him around because he comes into the office every day. And if there's an issue, I just, it's nice to have like a sounding board.
Definitely makes sense. Yeah, I think that's great advice to surround yourself with people that are smarter than you, especially in areas that you might have a weakness. So Veldskoen, again, is the brand. I think it's important to spell out the name of the website, VeldskoenShoes.com.
Can I just say like what that actually means? Because a lot of people would just be like, it's just a name, but it actually means field shoe. So felt is South African, is Afrikaans for field. And then like if you ever go to Africa, you can go out to the veld, which is basically and then skoen is shoe.
Awesome. So yeah, that's the website, that's the brand. I'll leave you guys with this last question. What do you think is going to be your focus over the next year? I think this is the second year, so I guess third year in business. What are you guys going to be focused on?
PR. So we are, I like to call it phase 2. I thought I sounded very clever when I said that. But phase 2 is, phase 1 was Joel and marketing and Facebook and paid marketing. And now we're really starting to tell our story through PR. So we have some fantastic stuff lined up for that. Not cheap, but nonetheless, it's going to be fun to do, I think.
And Felix, you're number 1 on that PR list.
All right. We'll check that off the list then. You guys are well on your way to accomplishing your goal. Thank you so much, Angela and Steve.
Thanks, Felix.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Shopify Masters, the e-commerce podcast for ambitious entrepreneurs powered by Shopify.